Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we're looking at the HAVOC, the Heavy Articulated Vehicle Ordnance Carrier. This is a two-in-one vehicle in a lot of regards. The HAVOC was first released in the United States in 1986. It included the driver cross-country. The HAVOC also was sold in 1987 and unfortunately was discontinued in 1988. So, HAVOC. Or Havoc with the pilot cross country here. Um, and of course, he was released as a box set, but he was also sold. No, I wanted to say he was probably sold as a box release or something else, but it doesn't look like he is. I know that we had a couple other ones that had been, and then they were even sold as a mail in or whatever. But apparently, cross country did not get that same kind of prestige with them. So, but it is a nice look to them. And then when we look here, what Joe supplies us for some wonderful views, which is one of the other reasons why we come here, and they have some nice information just on the toy itself. Uh, so, looking at the vehicle we have, it has been pointed out that this is kind of a interesting take because we have heavy cannons here when we're looking forward. That's on the left and right of the gunner up on top. Um, and that leaves that gunner fully exposed. So why we have it that way, I don't know. It's just a decision that Hasbro had come up with when they just decided to create the toy. And then a rear view, and then you see the um, hovercraft sled on the back, and then a nice side view. So we have what looks like essentially a two-wheeled with tracks on the over or going over them. That's really the simplest way it looks to me, as though this is, we have, you know, two sets of tires on the left and right in the front with a kind of rubberish track tread going over it. That would make the most amount of sense, if I can speak correctly here this afternoon, in doing this. You know, Getting a nice side view, it looks very bare in here. Um, and I never had this as a toy, so I really couldn't say. And there's some different interesting takes on how this is done. Um, because this is a heavy ordnance vehicle. So to me, I'm thinking it's carrying the ordnance, not just the way it is itself, supporting the two main guns up on top here. Okay, and then we have our left side. We have a top-down view, and then we have an isometric left front, isometric right front, and then the rear, and then a raised isometric. Okay, so now we finally get our little hovercraft out, and you can see the little landing pad there for it to go onto. So this is an interesting machine to really try and encompass what it should be, I guess, to properly explain. Um, Actually, I guess I kind of goofed here because, all right, and I'll explain this. When I was doing this, we have the machine guns, which are on the left and right here. They're on the top, but we also have machine guns here. So I was thinking that those are the same machine guns. So I guess what I will have to do, and we will get it done here, um, is kind of get this all put together, and I'll have to add a couple parts. Okay, so that's what we have on that part. Easily broken and or lost. We have the four small red missiles and which are small and easily lost. Um, let's see, we have the HAVOC here from Sunbow, as well as, let's see, we have the Action Force. And again, now it looks like we have Dusty, Beachhead, that looks like Snake Eyes. We have Duke and Leatherneck. And I don't know who that is off in the distance there. It almost looks like it could be Leatherneck back there as well, but that obviously can't be. Okay, So, looking at what the Havoc has, it is a what is it, 54 ton? Yeah, it says 54-ton vehicle. Um, Fully loaded, it itself goes 40 miles an hour. The hovercraft, though, goes about 60 miles an hour. Um, the range, it goes about 175 miles. The hovercraft only goes about 80 miles. The armament for the tracked vehicle is a dual recoilless 75 millimeter cannon with 20 rounds in each, a dual 9 millimeter repeater, auto loaded machine gun with 500 rounds each. Those are those I'm taking as the guns in the front, down below the drivers. So we have some 9 millimeter machine guns there. Okay, and then it also says, um, if I catch up where I am, um, this is a hovercraft has two 7.62 millimeter computer synchronized machine guns with 300 rounds of ammunition in each. Ordnance. It also has four Lancer rear mounted anti armor heat seeking missiles. So that's what I was kind of going off of. But what we don't see is on the back here, um, we have the machine guns. And if you're just watching, there's machine guns on the top and the back. If you're watching, I'm circling the mouse around. That's what I was thinking was on the your little hover sled here. Um, so I'm kind of goofing up here because I'm kind of going off of what it's saying here and what they have. So the Havoc is an ideal armored vehicle suited to short, heavy fire campaigns. An interesting sight on the battlefield. Its most unique feature is the top-mounted detachable one-man hovercraft used for anti-personnel operation. The major drawback to the Havoc, aside from the lightly armored hovercraft, is it needs almost constant resupply of ammunition and ordnance. This limits the vehicle to short missions, however. Its thick armor and the ability to withstand a great deal of punishment are perfect safeguards in case in case a fresh supply of weaponry is unavailable. Um, and when I'm thinking heavy articulated vehicle ordnance carrier, I'm thinking something that's going to be carrying the ordnance itself. Uh, that's my viewpoint of it, and that's a little disconnect with what I'm thinking it probably should be to what it really is. So just looking at it in those regards. Okay. Okay. Now we have a nice commercial spot that they had for it, and that ends this. Now, um, back in 1986, we had the Havoc. In 1990, we have the Sky Havoc, which is a chrome plated version of it for all the Sky Patrol. Then we have the Havoc Mark II, which really looks like it is the Snowcat just done in olive drab, which is a nice color and a nice take on it. Although personally, I don't know if I would keep the missiles on the sleds like we have here on the sides, but uh, it is what it is. I guess in some regards, I would just have missiles stored here to resupply our top. And I know I've said this in the past on some of the other ones. On something like this, if it was me looking at it, I think I would have like a laser cannon, or because we're doing it based off of the cartoon, it would be a laser cannon. If this was the comic book, I would say like a 50 caliber machine gun in the middle somewhere, um, with the missiles on the side. That's my take on it. Right or wrong, that's just my take on it. Um, so we'll get back to the Havoc here. And interestingly enough, if you were back in 1986, this only cost you about $9, just under the $9 mark. So not really all that bad, just an interesting thing. But there again, we have to remember in 1986, $10 was a little bit more. Uh, Minimum wage was quite a bit less. I think Now, somebody can roast me on this one. I want to say minimum wage was probably closer to like $4 back then. So you had a lot of families that were making maybe $10 an hour. Um, so that's still an hour's worth just for your child to have a toy like this, and that's quite a bit of money. Um, so when we look back in that regards, just like when I talk about Star Wars, remember Star Wars is 1970s um, economics in a lot of regards. So it's harder for us today because we're used to money being worth a lot less in a regard because we get paid more. Um, but when you go back to the 1970s and you say a brand new car could cost you $8,000 for a two-door hatchback, um, and I remember that because my mom had showed me how much they paid for a Corolla way back then, and that it was like $8,000 brand new. So it is those things to keep in mind. All right. All right. So then when we look at the Havoc, as far as throwing it into our G.I. Joe slash Star Wars universe here, um, we have it at speed or scale. I'm guessing on the length of these. So if I'm off, please just bear with me on this. I figured it's roughly about 25 feet long. Um, just trying to weigh this out. And that comes out to about 7.6 meters. Has a crew of three. Now I'm just looking at the Havoc itself. I'm not looking at this at our hovercraft in the back. That's being listed as a separate vehicle, which we will hit. But first, we're going to hit the Havoc itself. I have no passengers on this. I do have just being a standard 45 kilograms for cargo. Uh, this one is kind of hard as far as cover goes. I'm going to call it full coverage. I know we have the driver sitting out here and he's fully exposed, but I'm just going to leave it at full coverage. And even furthermore, really, if if I'm going to do this and we're just doing this for fun, and just keep it in mind, if you want to get down and gritty and really look at it in a military sense, go for it. But I'm just looking at this as just a fun experience at doing this. Even if I had someone on top of the vehicle, half coverage, a quarter coverage, you know what? I think I would say we're going to hit the vehicle first and then the person after the vehicle is destroyed. Just trying to keep it as lighthearted as I can. If you've ever watched me play any of these, because I roll really bad for myself, I've had my characters killed off a couple times over. So I always try to err on the side of the players. I always try to make it fun and exciting for them. I don't want them dying all the time. The guys know it. They don't. The group I play with, they don't try to abuse that system. And if I did know that they were abusing it, I would probably do things differently. Um, so in that regard, you know, whether it was a full coverage or not, I would probably give them a full coverage just to have fun with it all. Okay, altitude, of course, this is going to be ground based. I gave it a maneuverability of 2D. I just figured it's going to be a standard here. This is a longer vehicle. So um, I don't think this is the problem because it's not like I've physically had this thing. I don't believe that it's actually got a hinge in the middle to make it go a little bit tighter for turns. Um, so I figured if I just left it as a standard 2D, that would probably be fine. Now, in the final card, it said that the tracked vehicle itself goes about 40 miles an hour, which is actually 64 kilometers an hour. Um, has a body strength of 5D. I figured it's a little bit more resilient. We'll keep it at 5D. Now, I do have the dual heavy blaster cannons, which are up on top. So I'm taking this from some of the books for the range and everything. I give it a fire control of 1D. Looking at the guy up here, they don't seem to have a very big um, computer or anything else for targeting. I think it's going to be a learned experience. It's just um, kind of have to wing it as far as how you're shooting, and that's going to be 60 in damage. because it's the two of them being fire linked. Otherwise, it would have been 5D each being fire linked, and it does have a fairly good range here. Then we have the two medium repeating blasters, which are these. Thinking of them because it's supposed to be 9 millimeters. That's how I'm looking at it. Um, Actually, why don't I do this? Because I think that might help it a little bit. I'm going to put it as two. Two. Da, 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 there we are. And I'm going to give it a little space. And then as far as our there. Okay, so then we're also going to have the two repeating blasters in the back for the rear. So that's kind of a little bit of a change there, just trying to do it for what it is. I think that changes it fairly quickly, keeping fairly similar ammo going there. Uh, and the other thing is because these are lasers, you're not going to run out of ammo on this. Uh, so if you're doing it, if you wanted to do this like the comic books, um, these are supposed to be 75 millimeter. They're only supposed to have 20 rounds in each. I usually don't limit the guys as to how many shots they can, keep shooting or whatever. It's like I said, I try to do this lighthearted. Um, it's for us to have fun. If the guys don't have fun, we're not going to keep playing it. So there is a lot of that idea in my head. Okay, so these are going to be personnel scale. So if anyone's running up to us, we can shoot at them with the 9 millimeter or the medium repeating blasters. Okay, and that's going to have a fire control of 2D, and it's going to be a damage of 8D. Um, because the repeating blaster in Star Wars is actually 7D, and that would actually be heavier than the um, 9 millimeter. So I was just taking straight out of the book the medium repeating blasters. That is going to be heavier than the 9 millimeter, so that we're kind of upgrading these a little bit, which I think is fine. Um, and this is a personnel scale, so if you're trying to attack something heavier, we could still maybe do some damage to something at Walker scale, like a tank, but it's only going to be 4D damage. Um, but it does make it easier for us to hit it. All right, and then it listed these as Lancer missiles. Now I did grab something else here. These are smaller looking missiles, and they're rear facing. So I do have it as fire control of 2D and damage of 4D. And it does have a fairly good range. That's where our ranged attacks come from. Um, I figured it's fairly respectable. Um, and it is a speeder scale, so if you're attacking another truck or something, you have a pretty good chance of wiping it out. A tank, on the other hand, maybe not as much, although you have 4 shots. These are not fire linked, they're just separate missiles. All right, otherwise, then we look at our hovercraft. Again, I'm guessing at the length of this. So I'm looking at it. Why don't we call it about 10 feet long, sitting in the back here? So really, I have 10 feet, 10 feet in the back, 5 feet in the middle here, and that's really what I was kind of thinking here. Right or wrong, this is just kind of where I'm going with this. Has a crew of 1, no passengers. Cargo capacity is 45 kilograms. Again, that's just the standard that I would always see in the books for fighter craft. Whether it's warranted on this or not, I don't know. This would only have at most, I'd say, about a half scale or half coverage. And this is easier than having that person sitting all the way up on the top of the machine here. Okay, altitude, I have it at ground. Now, I don't know how high up we should have this going, maybe 10 feet. Um, so if we did ground um, to 10 feet, so I'll do the abbreviation for feet here. I think that would be all right. Because obviously it's going to have to get up high enough to try and sit back down in there. So I think that should be all right. Maneuverability, I gave it a 2D. I don't see a lot of fins here. I don't know exactly how it's going for the maneuvering. So I think if we just keep it as a standard, that should be fine. It is able to go 60 miles an hour or 96 kilometers an hour. Now, this is not going to be as resilient, so this is going to be only a 2D for the body strength at speed or scale. And it has the dual light repeating blasters. Not as heavy as what we have on the Havoc itself. These are a lighter weight blaster cannon. The R front, they're at personnel scale. Fire control is 1D because, again, I think we're going to be more worried about trying to keep this stable. And I don't think you're going to have a lot of computerization in there. Maybe I'm wrong. And I have it at 7D because that's what the light repeating blasters would make it about. I think the light repeating were 6D, with the two of them being fire link, that takes it up 1D, so that's 7D. And it does go anywhere from range of, and I kind of goofed up on this one, 3 to 50, for a short range would be 3 to 50 meters, then out to 120, and then out to 300 meters being our long range. Anything after that starts getting to be extreme. So that really kind of covers the two vehicles here. And like I said, it is two vehicles. Whether I'm doing it very well or I'm a little off here, either way, it's just trying to get the flavor of it, trying to get, what we can see and how things kind of go. Like I said, I don't know if I'm really correct with the length. Maybe this might have to be a little bit longer. Maybe we should bump it up to 30. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say here. And maybe I think I will. Just giving it a little extra room here, just so I can feel it's got enough room for any doors, the engine in there, all that other stuff. Just trying to cover the basics here, and of course, now that I increase that, now let's increase our. It's not going to be 7.6. That's going to be just over 9 meters long. So let's just kind of change that. So we'll just make it 9 meters. Okay. And then I think would probably fit this fairly well. It's another one of those. To me, it's an odd kind of vehicle. It's a wonderful playset. And it was featured a number of times in the cartoon. So having it here is really important to have here. I think it works out really well. But it's not a standard or typical military vehicle that we're used to. But there again, bringing it in, and it gives us extra. I mean, I think the best way to do these would be you come up with your force and figure out what vehicles you want your group to have. And maybe that's even a group discussion to say, hey, let's get down to a heavier vehicle, a lighter vehicle, maybe two different flying vehicles, and maybe one or two different boats or something like that. So you have just kind of a rough assessment as to what you can use or what you can't use. This adds a secondary, having a hovercraft, so it gives you an extra vehicle to use to scout around or whatever else. So, it's an interesting vehicle. Trying to reformat everything, because unfortunately how I was doing it before, the copy and paste and everything else, for everything, because the other vehicles were already made up. This is a little bit new format, so I was kind of fighting with this here today, trying to get this going because we have more vehicles. We go quite a ways out. This is only 1986, and we have many more years to go, so I'm trying to get the format down to something that will work for all of our future vehicles. And hopefully now, if I'm going through, I can see what I all have. So hopefully I don't do any repeats of what we've already done. With that, hope you enjoy the series. I enjoy bringing this to you every day. Hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you in the next video.